In this video, you'll learn how to follow a counted cross-stitch pattern. Hi there, this is Sarah with Notorious Needle bringing you radical cross-stitch design. By the end of this video, you'll learn how to follow a counted cross-stitch pattern. So what do you get in a counted cross-stitch pattern? Your counted cross-stitch pattern should come with a title and a part number, a picture of the finished project so you know what to look like. Your pattern will come with a list of materials, not just a list of embroidery floss that you might need, if there's anything besides embroidery floss that you are using, for instance beads or ribbons. These days, most patterns that you buy, especially the electronic ones, will have links to tutorials like this one that you can use to help you follow the pattern. And there should be something for every stitching technique required, not just cross stitch, but if you're doing fractional stitches, back stitch, any kind of special embellishments, or there might be a section that uses like a French knot, stuff like that. There should be instructions included for everything that you need to do. Your pattern should tell you what the project, how big the project will be when it's finished. Of course, that depends on the count of Aida cloth that you use or even weave cloth that you use. If your chart is more than one page, your pattern should show you how those pages fit together. This is called a page map. This is especially important if your project has a bajillion pages. Some of them are very, very big, especially the full coverage patterns, and you'll need to know after you finish page 1, where does page 2 go? Does it go to the right? Does it go down? That way you're always on the right page, literally. Two of the most important things that your pattern should come with is the chart itself and the floss color key. The chart, of course, is a map of the pattern, and the floss key is like the legend. Some patterns come with a thread sorter that you can use to keep track of your threads and make sure that you're not running too low. And then, of course, there will be the publisher info and the contact info, especially if you're purchasing a digital pattern. All right, what do I do first? The first thing you should do is read the pattern from beginning to end. I am not kidding. I am not exaggerating. That is the first thing you need to do. You need to make sure that number one, you have all the materials that you need, because let me tell you, there's no such thing as one trip to the craft store. Number two, you need to make sure that you know how to do all the stitches in the pattern so that you can finish it without getting frustrated. And you may want to even practice some of them. I know lots of stitchers have trouble with like French knots. I know I do. It's really important that you just read the whole thing first, and also that you have your pages in order if there's more than one page. The next thing you need to do is start stitching. And where should you start? I'm assuming because you're watching this video that you're a beginner, and I recommend starting as close to the middle as possible for a couple of reasons. It's easy to start in the middle. There's a stitch there. There's not a lot of counting to do. And also it ensures that your pattern is centered, which makes it a lot easier to finish it and frame it. So this is how you start in the middle. When you're looking at your pattern, and here's my little winky emoji pattern, your pattern will have grid lines in red or blue. The grid line should be a different color in the center. So here's this red grid line here, and here's this red grid line here. That shows the center of the pattern. This pattern also has arrows pointing to the center grid line, and that's to help you in case you print the pattern out in black and white. You can always find the center. So here's the center. The center is not actually a stitch. It is a hole in between all the stitches. That's okay. How do you find the center in your fabric? I have already centered my fabric in this little hoop to keep it steady so that you can watch me stitch without everything sort of shaking around. if you've already got your fabric in your hoop, you're probably okay, right? Because chances are you're going to finish it in the hoop, or it'll be close enough to center so that when you're ready to finish it or frame it, it'll look good. Here I have this other piece of Aida cloth. To find the center, you just fold it in half, and then you fold it in half the opposite way. Like this. I press it really good so there's a good crease. Don't worry, the crease comes out when you're done. And then where, let's see, can you see the folds? Where the folds are, that is the center. There you go. So that would be the center right there. Now that we found the center, we're ready to get started. Where do we start? So in the center of my emoji pattern, it's just full cross stitches. But you can see there's also some back stitch here around the mouth and the wink. And then I've got some back stitch outlining the whole face. There's some back stitch around the eye here too, just to emphasize the eyes. The order of stitches is you really want to cross stitch first with all the fractional stitches if you have any, then back stitch and do the other outlines, and finally you want to do the embellishments like beads or ribbons. And the reason is that you want the back stitches to sit on top of the cross stitches, otherwise they get buried, or instead of creating this nice straight line in your back stitch, you've got sort of weird like breaks in the line because you've cross stitched over bits of it, like in the corners and stuff. So you cross stitch first and then back stitch, and then of course like beads and ribbons, and yes, some patterns use these, or like little strings and stuff, you do those very last. And the reason is, again, you want them to sit on top of the cross stitches, but let's say they're not even located in a part of the pattern where you have cross stitch. If you do them first and you try to cross stitch around them, your thread gets caught on them every time. Every time you pull the thread through the fabric, it's going to get caught around whatever extra little pieces are sticking out from the fabric. So cross stitch first, then back stitch, then do the other stuff. You can do it however you want. I've been doing this for a long time, and I promise you that is the easiest, fastest way to get this done. Before I start stitching, I want to tell you a couple of things that you need to know about the grid and the color floss chart. The floss color key. Well, say that 3 times fast. Okay, you'll notice the grid has slightly thicker lines every 10 squares, and that is to help you count your stitches. And you'll see that at the top on the left, you'll see numbers that tell you how many stitches into the grid you are. On the floss color key, so here's the floss color key for the wink emoji. There's only 2 colors. You've got black, which is DMC number 310. DMC is the brand of floss that I'm recommending you use. And for the DMC brand, number 310 is black. Here's a little symbol that we're using to represent that on the pattern. I'm recommending 2 strands. This is how much you need of floss to complete the pattern, and this is how many stitches of each color you're required to finish. And there is another floss color chart that's just for cross stitches, and this one's specifically for the back stitch. And this, again, I'm recommending 2 strands here because we're stitching on, normally you only do 1 strand for back stitch, but because I'm stitching on 11 count Aida cloth, the stitches are really big, and I believe that it's better to stitch with 2 strands for the back stitch to show, so that the outline really shows through. Again, we're stitching yellow on white, so. And then it shows you there's only 41 stitches for the back stitch. If I start in the center, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches before I come to the end of the pattern. So, start here. And I'm just going to do the loop start really quick. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. Here's the end of the thread. little loop. If you want to learn more about loop start, that's covered in another video, how to start a thread. So I've got 7 half stitches. Now I'm going to go back and complete these 7 stitches. Okay, so I've completed the 7 stitches to the left of center. Now when I look back at my pattern, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more stitches to the right of center. So I'm going to stitch those next. But I'm going to stitch them one at a time so that when I'm done with the 7th stitch, I'm all the way at the end of the row. You can start your pattern this way, or you can count from the middle, 7 stitches to the left or right, and then stitch the whole row right there. I did it this way to show that this is the safest way of starting right in the middle without miscounting. But really, it's 7 stitches. If you're 1 stitch off from center, it's not going to be that big a deal. So you can count from the center and start all the way at the left or all the way at the right and do the whole row, or you can do like I did and start right in the middle and do half of the row and then the other half. Okay, looks like I've got 14 stitches. Let me just double count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And in the pattern we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, that first row is done. On to the next row. I'm going to just go ahead and finish all the yellow here and bring you back in later. Done with the yellow, on with the black. Just finished all the outline, all the back stitch, and that's the finished wink emoji. If you want to learn more about cross stitch, like what the heck is a fractional stitch, you can check out my Cross Stitch for Beginners playlist above, and if you'd like to practice with the wink emoji pattern, you can get that in the description below. Stitch on!